Okay.
Go.
We'll see how it works. Good morning, Kitt Condrey-Miller with Hard Drive from Open On-Site Computer Services. And we manage, protect, rinse, and repeat. And what's most likely to fail are slow and sluggish computer, virus intrusions, hardware failure, network slowdowns, connectivity issues, and most important, human error is the most likely failure. What happens during my typical day? I make a plan every day, and I don't know when it ever works. But one of the things I like most about my business is working with my walk-in clients who are usually in the 45 to 105 range and are nervous about computers and come in and say, I don't know anything, but they use them every day, right? And so I like to think that in our process of repair and returning the computer that we take our time to give them information that they didn't have when they walked in. So hopefully when they go home they're a little bit more savvy. And every time they come in we try to build their experience a little more and a little more. Things that we do, crack open all-in-ones and make them look like new. Crack open laptops and repair broken hinges. We've had several of these this year. Blow out the dust. Clean it and replace the CP thermal paste. So it used to be that computers lasted 3 years, and now they're lasting 6, 8, and sometimes 10 years. So the thermal paste dries up and becomes brittle, actually. And sometimes you have to take a razor to actually get it off. So this creates throttling, and throttling slows down your computer. And it also, if it overheats enough, will either burn out the motherboard most likely, or the motherboard and the CPU. And so it's a good idea, maybe at a 4-year interval, to have your thermal paste replaced. Repair broken parts. This is a USB cluster. The one on the left is a power supply and broken hinge, and then the one on the right is a wire came undone on that hooks up to the wireless card on the laptop. Broken screens. We build workstations and restore computers that we buy, or back to school project also we do a lot of that. That particular computer sold for $1,700, and when I built it I was like, this is never going to sell in Red Bluff. And some guy came in and just fell in love with it and walked out the door.
Awesome.
It was actually really fun to build that one. And then of course we have the virus remediation and tune-up desk, where we can, I've done up to 9 computers at one time on that computer, and that is a tough day. You sweat doing this work when you do that many. And repair broken phones, and with the right to repair not happening, and what Apple is doing with their phones, it's getting harder and harder to repair the latest phones. And then we also go in on the left. That was out of a sound device for this guy who goes around and DJs. And so we had to, it's hard to see, but there's a wire. I had to carve back the coating to the copper and put a wire in there to jump it, because the vibration had actually broken it. Wow. And then the thumb drive on the right came in and it had been turned into an L. And all of the personal data that this guy used was on that thumb drive. So we were able to, you can't see it in this picture, but we were able to straighten it out. We had to do the same thing, scrape back to the copper and find some thin wire in Red Bluff. I don't know if you know how hard that is. I ended up buying stranded wire so that I could take one of those out. Whoa. And I was able to get all the data off and transfer it to a new drive. That drive did work when I sent it back, but I wouldn't trust it. No. So that's what I do in my day job. So the rest of the time, I manage clients on-site, remotely and on-site. So when I'm not in the office, I'm probably out working with a client somewhere who has a problem. And the way I handle my managed business, if they give me a call, I'm gone. If I can't remote into their computer and fix it, I'm out the door and I go fix it right now. We usually have a pretty short response time. I've just recently started using a program called SOSsplashtop.com, where you can type that into your address bar and it'll immediately download an application that'll give you a number, and that can remote into your computer and help you without leaving the office, which allows me to faster service and less expensive because no travel time. Highly recommended services that all businesses should consider putting in place: solid virus protection, great backup and recovery solution, cloud backup, good password management, which is horrible in this town, I have to tell you. People do not change their password in their simple passwords.
Don't look at me.
Regular inspection and preventative management, consistent inspection, verification that backup images are correct, off-site bare metal recovery performed monthly. Let's see, so we know something is going to go wrong, we just don't know when. Time to recover is imperative. If good practices are put in place, practice regularly, then costly downtime can be kept to a minimum. And downtime has to be considered with how many employees you have. If your server goes down, nobody's working, or if they are, they're working hard. And that's expensive time, because not only do they have to do the work once, but when the server's back up and running, they have to redo that work, re-enter it, and that's hours and hours. That's your real cost. And preventing that downtime, or preventing big downtime, is really about the backup. If you have the backup and you have offsite, you pay for the offsite bare metal recovery to make sure it's working and working well, then the time to put that in place when it's needed can be greatly shortened and back up and running in a few hours, as opposed to several days to, depending on how bad it is, several weeks. The worst that can happen is losing your data. Everything else can be replaced. Neglect or stolen with ransomware, crypto locker, without proper controls, that can be put you out of business. I mean, imagine if you lost December 31st and you lose your entire QuickBooks, it's gone, it's locked up, and you have to pay a criminal to get that information back. You know, there's nobody who's going to encourage you to pay that criminal and encourage him to continue to do that work. But they've stolen from hospitals, they've stolen from colleges, and those guys do pay. And they pay because they have to protect their brain trust and their HIPAA compliance. And so it's important to have the front end work, which is great antivirus protection, so that you don't get those problems. First line of defense is good practices, and second line of defense is good virus protection. Let's see. So, oh yeah, so there's a lot of people claiming that they're whitelisted software. But when you look under the hood and you really see what they're doing, and Acronis has a really good program and a great recovery. But the problem is it's a known virus and ransomware solution, not an unknown. So they can protect you from ransomware that, what's the one, the Cry, I forget the full name of it. There was one that hit 3 or 4 years ago that was especially bad. And so those are all protected against. But an unknown virus, they're not protected against, and their solution is a backup. And that, again, creates downtime. And I asked the question, why get the virus? White Cloud Security, for 3 going on 4 years, our virus protection of choice has been White Cloud Security. The proof is in the pudding. When you use any virus, we know you're going to get a virus. In the 3.5 years plus that we've installed White Cloud security, not one of our clients has had a virus. They've gotten the executable file, but White Cloud prevents the executable file from executing, so you don't get the virus. White Cloud security isn't a virus protect. What? It is a virus for tomorrow as well. It will protect you against viruses that haven't been written yet. White Cloud doesn't work off of a blacklist. It works off of a whitelist, which is what has been installed in your computer, what you want to run on your computer. And so its latency is virtually nothing, because it never has to check anything when something comes into your computer. It doesn't have to look at the blacklist and see if it's approved, and the blacklist doesn't have to be updated, because if you install a new program, then what we do with White Cloud is we introduce it to White Cloud so it's aware of it and it's approved, and anything else that comes in is not approved and will not run. White Cloud's approach on the surface is simplicity, and behind the scenes is where it all happens in my office, where I can look at every day you have updates that come into your computer from all your different software. And some of those updates are necessary and some are not necessary. So we approve only what is necessary. That a few years ago, Azus was hacked and their certificates were stolen. And there was over 1.5 million computers infected because of their ability to steal the certificate. With White Cloud, we can see what's going on. We can prevent those instances. Hard Drive's goal is to make it seem like we're never there. That's how we know we've done a good job. Thank you.
Excellent. I just want to give a quick shout out. I actually have the White Cloud subscription, and it has worked out very, very well. I lost my data. I had a hard drive that crashed in February, and it gave me the opportunity to finally listen to Kitt and do what he's been recommending. And so in addition to that White Cloud now, I've also got everything set up now so that if and when it happens again, or I should say when it happens again, I've got the proper backup. So I appreciate just having kind of my own sort of a tech support, if you will. He's always been very helpful, and when I pick up the phone, he's always there to help me, so I appreciate that.
You're my easiest sell. Anyone who's had a problem and felt the pain is easy to sell. It's you guys who haven't had the problem that I want to talk to.
Yes, true enough.
Now with the White Cloud software, is that something that is available for Apple products, and should it be used on that type of thing?
You know, recently I asked them about Apple, and they are developing Apple, but they decided to go for Linux because of all the servers. Most of the world runs on Linux, like all the web servers and everything, Fortune 500 companies, their servers are all Linux. So they decided to go after that market, and that market turns out to be a harder sell than Microsoft. And so now when I ask them about, apparently they're having a fight inside the office about why haven't we done Mac. So it's coming, but it hasn't happened.
Okay. A little bit of a conspiracy theorist with this, and it makes me think of the Mission Impossible 2 movie where it was the pharmaceutical company that actually made the virus, and then they created the antivirus for it.
Oh.
You think the antivirus companies are creating viruses out there to keep themselves busy?
Well, you know, I get that question all the time, and all I can say is this, is like, if I did something to harm your computers so that you'd come back more and more and more, it's like, how long would I be in business?
True.
And I was asked one time, it's like, since you know so much about computers, isn't it hard to do the right thing? And it's like, well, if you're not wired that way,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, maybe it's hard to do the right thing, but I'm just not wired that way. I want to see smiles. I don't want to see frowns. You know?
Exactly.
And, you know, I want to treat people the way I want to be treated. And, you know, in a direct answer to your question, I'm sure there's people who work for companies that do antivirus, that do bad things, because there are bad people. But I doubt there's any virus company that actively is creating viruses. That being said, if you're using Kaspersky, why are you using a Russian company to protect your computer? It is a great antivirus,
Opening the door.
and they have a fantastic reputation. But given what's happened in the last several years, it just doesn't make sense.
So do you work on printers as well?
I'm sorry?
Do you work on printers?
Yeah, I don't. Primarily because if they're inexpensive enough that you are not going to have a contract, then I'm going to be too expensive. You can buy one cheaper. And if it's, you know, a $3,000 printer, I'm not going to know how to work on it. And I don't want to. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so moving right along here.